Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Have you ever heard of the assassins? Not the ones from the video games, but the real historical figures who struck fear into the hearts of sultans and crusaders alike. Their story is a thrilling tale of espionage, political intrigue, and deadly precision. And at the center of it all is one man, Hassan-i-Sabbah, the old man of the mountains. Who was this mysterious figure, and how did he create one of the most feared organizations in history? Let's travel back to the 11th century to uncover the truth. Our story begins in Persia, modern-day Iran. Hassan-i-Sabbah was a brilliant and charismatic man, a devout follower of a minority branch of Shia Islam known as Ismailism. In a world dominated by the Sunni Seljuk Empire, Hassan and his fellow Ismailis were seen as heretics and were often persecuted. But Hassan was not one to simply accept his fate. He believed he had a divine mission, and he spent years traveling across the Middle East, from Egypt to Syria, studying, preaching, and gathering followers. He was a master of theology, philosophy, and, as it turns in, military strategy. Hassan knew that to protect his community and spread his faith, he needed a base, a sanctuary that was safe from the reach of the powerful Seljuk armies. His eyes fell upon a formidable fortress perched high in the Elburz Mountains of northern Iran. It was called Alamut Castle, the eagle's nest. Getting it wasn't going to be easy. He couldn't just march an army up to the gates. He didn't have one, so Hassan did something far more clever. He began sending his missionaries, his da'is, into the villages and towns surrounding Alamut. They lived among the people, worked with them, and slowly converted them to the Isma'ili cause. Over months, even years, his followers secretly infiltrated the castle itself, working as guards and servants, waiting for the right moment. Finally, on September 4, 1090, Hassan-i-Sabbah himself was smuggled into the fortress. He now effectively controlled from the inside. When the castle's lord realized what had happened, it was too late. Hassan had taken Alamut without shedding a single drop of blood. It was a masterclass in covert operations, and it was only the beginning. From his mountain stronghold, Hassan began to build his organization. He established a network of fortresses across Persia and Syria, creating a state with no contiguous borders, a web of power and influence. He trained a group of devoted followers, known as the Fidais, which means those who sacrifice themselves. These were the men who would become legendary, the ones his enemies would call the Hashishim, or as the crusaders would later corrupt the name, the assassins. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the name Hashishim. For centuries, a popular legend, spread by Marco Polo and others, claimed that Hassan would drug his young followers with hashish. He would supposedly lead them to a secret paradise garden filled with wonders, convincing them they had tasted the afterlife. He would then promise them a permanent return to this paradise if they successfully carried out his orders to kill his enemies. It's a fantastic story, but most modern historians believe it's just that, a story. It was likely propaganda, a smear campaign created by his enemies to discredit him and his followers, to paint them as drug-crazed fanatics rather than disciplined, religiously motivated agents. Another theory suggests the name comes from Asasiyun, meaning those who follow the foundation of the faith. Whatever the origin, the name stuck, and the legend of the drugged killers grew. The reality was perhaps even more impressive. Hassan's Fidais were not mindless drones. They were highly intelligent, often multilingual, and rigorously trained in espionage, disguise, and of course the art of the kill. They were masters of infiltration, capable of spending months or even years embedding themselves in an enemy's court, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Their weapon of choice was not a sword on a battlefield, but a dagger in a crowded mosque or a royal court. Why the dagger? Why the public assassinations? It was all about psychological warfare. Hassan's goal wasn't just to eliminate his enemies. It was to send a message. A battlefield death is anonymous, but to be killed by a lone operative in the heart of your own power, surrounded by your own guards, that was terrifying. It showed that no one, no matter how powerful, was safe. It demonstrated the reach and unwavering resolve of the old man of the mountains. Their very first major target was one of the most powerful men in the Islamic world, Nizam al-Mulk, the Grand Vizier of the Seljuk Empire. He was a staunch opponent of the Ismailis and had publicly denounced them. In 1092, an assassin named Bu Tahir Arrani, disguised as a Sufi mystic, approached the vizier's litter and stabbed him to death. The shockwave was immense. It was as if a commoner had single-handedly taken down the most senior advisor to the king. The assassins had announced their arrival on the world stage, and the world was terrified. The fighters operated with a chilling code. They were expected to carry out their mission and often to die in the process, either killed by guards or taking their own life. They never fled. This utter fearlessness only added to their mystique. These were not common hired thugs. They were true believers, convinced that they were serving a higher purpose, earning their place in paradise. Their missions were meticulously planned, sometimes taking years of preparation for a single decisive act. They would study their targets' habits, their security, their routines, looking for that one moment of vulnerability. Hassan-i-Sabbah himself ruled from Alamut for over 30 years, and legend says he never once left the castle in all that time. He lived an ascetic life, dedicating himself to study, prayer, and the administration of his growing network. He was reportedly so strict that he even executed his own sons, one for a suspected murder and the other for drinking wine. Whether true or not, these stories cemented his reputation as a man of absolute, unwavering principle. He was the spy master, the strategist, the spiritual leader, all rolled into one. From his mountain perch, his will was carried out by his devoted followers across the Middle East. The assassins didn't just target Sunni Muslims. When the European crusaders arrived in the Holy Land, they too became targets. Crusader leaders like Conrad of Montferrat, the King of Jerusalem, fell to the assassin's dagger. This is where the term entered the European languages. The crusaders, both terrified and fascinated by these mysterious killers from the mountains, brought their stories back to Europe, creating the legend of the Old Man of the Mountains and his deadly followers. For nearly 2 centuries, the assassins of Alamut were a major political force in the Middle East. They used targeted killings as a tool of statecraft, a way to level the playing field against much larger and more powerful empires. They were the ultimate underdog, using intelligence and precision to fight against brute force. But no empire lasts forever. In 1256, the Mongol hordes, led by Hulagu Khan, laid siege to Alamut. Even the eagle's nest, for all its defenses, could not withstand the full might of the Mongol army. The castle fell, its legendary library was burned, and the Ismaili state in Persia was destroyed. The fall of Alamut marked the end of the assassins as a major political power, but it did not end their legend. In fact, it was just the beginning. The stories, embellished and passed down through generations, transformed these historical figures into near-mythical characters. They became the inspiration for countless books, legends, and yes, a certain blockbuster video game franchise. So what is the true legacy of Hassan-i-Sabbah and his assassins? Were they terrorists? Or were they freedom fighters protecting their people from persecution? The answer, like most things in history, is complicated. They were pioneers of psychological warfare and masters of asymmetrical combat. They demonstrated that a small, disciplined, and highly motivated group could challenge the mightiest empires on earth. The story of the assassins is a stark reminder that the pen, the prayer, and sometimes the dagger can be just as powerful as the sword. It's a timeless tale of faith, power, and the deadly art of conviction. Thanks for watching. If you found this dive into history fascinating, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the past. Let me know in the comments what historical mystery you'd like to see uncovered next. See you in the next video.